So a couple of days ago, a family friend asked if I would be able to upgrade her MacBook Pro, and despite having never worked on an Apple product before or knowing how old the laptop is, I said yes. Thankfully, the laptop ended up being the mid-2010 model of the 13-inch MacBook Pro, which actually makes it a lot easier to get inside an upgrade compared to any of Apple's newer products. Now let's do a quick rundown of the laptop before the upgrade. On the left side, you have an optical drive and a Kensington lock, and on the left side, you have a MagSafe power connector, Gigabit Ethernet, FireWire 800, mini DisplayPort, 2 USB 2.0, an SD card reader, a headphone microphone combo audio jack, and an LED battery indicator. It has a pretty nice keyboard with good travel distance and an adjustable backlight, as well as a 1280 by 800 display, which might seem a little bit lackluster by today's standard in terms of resolution, but it still has pretty good color. For the upgrades, I'm going to be replacing the 4 gigs of RAM currently in there with 8, and replacing the 250 gig 5400 RPM mechanical hard drive with an ADATA SU800 of the same size. Before I do that though, let's do a quick boot test to see how much an improvement the SSD makes to the computer startup time. While we're waiting for that to do its thing, let's do a quick rundown of the specs. For the CPU, it uses a Core 2 Duo P8600 running at 2.4 GHz, and for the GPU, it uses an NVIDIA GeForce 320M. Definitely not the most amazing specs, but for the workloads it's going to be doing, it's more than enough. To replace the mechanical hard drive with an SSD, I'm going to be using an external 2.5-inch drive enclosure as well as a software from Mac called Carbon Copy Cloner. After fidgeting around with the enclosure for about 15 minutes because the included screws don't actually fit, I finally got the SSD inside and now I'm ready to clone the boot drive. Considering this laptop doesn't have any USB 3.0 and the internal hard drive is pretty slow, I think I'll be waiting a while for it to clone. 4.5 hours later and I'm finally ready to do the upgrade. Removing the 10 screws on the bottom of the device and popping off the aluminum panel gives us access to the internals. Removing the 2 tri-wing screws above the battery lets you, well, remove the battery. It's recommended you do this when working inside the laptop to reduce any risk of shock which could kill the components. Replacing the RAM was a fairly easy process. Just push the plastic tabs outwards and remove the DIMMs as they pop out, then line up the notches and place the new DIMMs into the slots and push firmly down and they should click into place. Replacing the hard drive was a little bit more of a process though. First you have to remove the Phillips head screws to take out the entire drive bracket, then you have to remove the Torx head screws to actually be able to mount the drive into the bracket, and then put them on the new drive, replace the bracket, and screw it back in. All the while being very careful not to damage the fragile ribbon cable that provides power and data to the drive. Now that I've finished doing the upgrades, we're ready to put it back together and see if it boots. While we're waiting for that to do its thing, let me get something out of the way. This is not meant to be an instructional video on how to upgrade your mid-2010 MacBook Pro. Rather, this is just my experience working on this kind of machine in 2017. It was surprisingly easy to find parts for it, and it was surprisingly easy to actually do the upgrades, especially compared to Apple's newer machines where you basically can't replace anything. And would you look at that, we basically cut the boot time in half, and the application opening speed and navigation of macOS Sierra is significantly faster too. No more waiting 30 seconds just to open a spreadsheet. In conclusion, I think this is a pretty worthwhile upgrade for anyone who doesn't need more performance than their laptop currently offers. If your laptop is starting to feel a bit sluggish in day-to-day operations, a RAM upgrade and an SSD could make a big difference to the perceived speed of your system. Anyway, I think that's going to be it for this video. If you disliked it, then hit that dislike button, but if you liked the video, then don't forget to leave a like, and don't forget to get subscribed if you want to keep up to date on all my latest content. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.